Accounting Enrichment Society, also known as AcES, is an interest organization of De La Salle University das Marinas under its accountancy departments. AcES, which is operated by BSA and BSM students, is here to assist their fellow students from the same accountancy and management accounting programs with their studies, mainly their accounting-related lessons. The students are given enrichment classes they could attend to, and extra lectures, tutorial sessions, and learning materials which may all help them understand accounting concepts easily. This academic year, AcES is stepping it up by creating YouTube tutorial videos about accounting concepts. Fun, interactive, enlightening, and broadening. AcES YouTube videos are surely not just another extra lecture and tutorial session, but also a fun and interactive way of learning. Welcome to AcES Tutorial Video Sessions. This session is prepared by Alia Fauni, Imee, Edino, and Therese, Libao. Bago tayo tumungo sa accounting lesson, alamin muna natin kung ano nga ba ang AcES o Accounting Enrichment Society. Ang Accounting Enrichment Society ay isang organisasyon ng mga estudyante sa De La Salle University das Marinas na naglalayong turuan ng mga kapwa nila estudyante ng mga accounting lesson tulad ng merchandise accounting, intermediate accounting 1, and etc. Aside from N-class, you can also get lesson from us through our tutorial videos uploaded on our YouTube channel. We prepared the list of topics na gagawan namin ng tutorial videos and divided it into 3 batches. This video is included in the first batch of tutorial video sessions, which consists topics such as basic concept of what is accounting, 5 major accounts and accounting equation, and the accounting cycle. For this video, we will be discussing the 5 major accounts and accounting equations since we already uploaded a tutorial video session for the basic concepts. So, sa previous topic natin, natakal natin ang forms of business organization and types of business operation. So, ano nga ba ulit yung mga yun? First, meron tayong 3 common forms of business organization and yun ay ang sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. So, ano nga ba ang mga sole proprietorship? Ito yung mga business na meron lang iisang owner. Isa lang ang nag-handle sa lahat from ideas to the decision and operations sa business. Example nito ay ang mga sari-sari store na owned lamang ng iisang tao. Next is partnership. Ito yung business na meron 2 tao or more than 2 na nag-form ng partnership to work together sa business. Both partners na ang nagde-decide at may brainstorming na nagaganap dito. Example nito ay mga firms such as accounting firms na owned ng 2 tao. Pero take note that partnership can be between 2 or more than 2 na tao. Lastly, corporation. Ito naman yung business organization in which meron tayong ine-elect na mga directors para sa mga decision-making ng business. Meron tayong mga shareholders at may separate entity yung business itself sa mga shareholders natin. For the summary, sa sole proprietorship, iisa lang ang pinaka-source ng capital kasi siya lang naman yung owner natin dito. While sa partnership, syempre lahat ng partners ay pwedeng source ng capital and it may be through the form of money, property, or service. So corporation naman, syempre ang public because we have shareholders here. For the management, ang nag-iisang owner lang mismo ang namamahala sa sole proprietorship, while sa partnership is lahat ng ating mga managing partner who is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the business, and sa corporation naman, of course, the CEO. Pagdating naman sa decision making, as usual, ang nag-iisang owner pa rin sa sole proprietorship, while sa partnership, syempre lahat ng partners involved sa decision making, and for corporation, yung board of directors lang na na-elect. When it comes to the life naman ng business, limited lang ang sole proprietorship at partnership because it is prone to dissolution, and pwedeng reasons or cause nito is poor management, bankruptcy, or withdrawal. However, pagdating sa corporation, unlimited na siya since wala nang expiration dito, unlike before na meron pang renewal after every 50 years. Lastly, ang sole proprietorship is unlimited ang kanyang liability because yung creditors niya is pwede siyang requestan ng bayad up to the extent na hindi lang pera niya sa business mismo yung need niyang ibigay, but also kahit yung personal money na niya. And same sa general partners, sa partnership, pero kapag limited partner naman yung usapan, katulad lang ng sa corporation. Kung hanggang saan lang yung value ng asset mo dun sa business, until that extent lang pwede mag-request yung creditor mo ng payment, or ayun lang yung pwede mong ibigay sa kanya. Types of business operation. Dito naman meron tayong tatlo, which is service, merchandising, and manufacturing business. Sa service, ang operation dito is nag-render tayo or nagpe-perform tayo ng service to the customer, while merchandising is nabili tayo ng goods na nilalagyan natin ng markup, then sell natin siya sa customer. At sa manufacturing naman, nabili tayo ng materials, then nag-add value tayo doon and make innovations, then we are turning it to finished product na mismong sinisell natin. Since nagkaroon na tayo ng overview sa previous topic, let's proceed to our topic for today's video, which is the 5 major accounts in the accounting equation. Para sa mga nagsistart pa lang, pasadahan muna natin saglit yung mga terms. For the first part, we have assets, current assets, non-current assets, contra assets, liabilities, current liabilities, and non-current liabilities. Asset is yung mga bagay na meron tayo sa business na in the future is meron tayong mabe-benefit from it. Current asset naman, yung mga asset na pwede natin ma-convert easily to cash sa loob lamang ng 1 year, while non-current is yung mga pangmatagalang asset na nagagamit natin such as fixed assets. So kapag current, within a year, and non-current is more than a year. Ang contra asset naman ay ang mga asset na ino-offset natin sa ating normal balance dahil need natin siya i-minus dun sa value ng asset natin. And ang example nito is yung mga accumulated depreciation. Nag-accumulate over time ang mga PPE natin, kaya need natin ibawas yung accumulated depreciation para makuha natin yung pinaka-value ngayon ng asset natin. For the liabilities naman, ito yung mga utang ng business or yung mga obligation ng business to pay or to render service in the future. Current liabilities naman ay ang mga obligations na due within a year, while non-current liabilities ay yung mga obligations na ang period is more than a year. Another terms to remember ay ang equity, revenue, expenses, contra equity, real accounts, nominal accounts, and normal balance. Equity is yung capital natin sa business. Ito yung ini-invest natin less yung total obligations natin. Revenue naman ay ang mga income na pumapasok sa business mula sa services na nirender natin or mula sa kita natin sa mga binibenta natin na goods, while expenses naman yung mga gastos natin within the operation ng ating business. Ito yung mga kailangan natin paggastusan kapag tayo ay nagpe-perform ng service o kaya naman nagmamanufacture or produce ng goods. Example ay yung mga rent sa facility, yung electricity and water, and other expenses. Contra equity naman is yung mga need natin ibawas sa ating equity. So, para rin siyang contra asset. This time, ito yung nakakabawas sa equity natin. So, dito pumapasok yung mga expenses. Later on, ma-explain sa inyo yung expenses as contra equity sa expanded accounting equation. Real account naman ay yung mga accounts na ginagamit natin or nare-remain unto the next accounting period, while nominal accounts, also known as temporary accounts, yung mga accounts na zero balance natin at the end of the period. At yun yung ginagawa natin through closing entries. Lastly, normal balance. So, normal balance yung tawag natin sa account kung saan dito nag-i-increase yung value ng specific account. For example, sa asset, ang normal balance ng asset is debit because ito yung balance kung saan siya nag-i-increase. Kapag nadadagdagan ng asset natin sa business, nagda-debit tayo. So, that's the normal balance. Yung normal balance ng asset is debit kasi dun siya nag-i-increase. 5 major accounts. Ano nga ba yung 5 major accounts natin? So, meron tayong assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, and expenses. So, let's start with asset muna. Assets are economic resources owned and controlled by the business. They are used in operating the business and are expected to benefit the business over a number of years. So yung assets, yung mga resources na meron tayo sa business in which ginagamit natin siya sa normal operation ng business to earn profit in the future. An asset, as defined in the framework, is a resource obtained and controlled by the enterprise as a result of past event and from which probable future economic benefits are expected to flow to the enterprise. So, yung asset natin, ito ay coming from our past transaction. Kaya meron tayo noon yan. And yung asset na yon in the present is minamanage or ginagamit natin. And eventually, in the future, may economic benefit tayo na makukuha in which pwede siya in form of cash or other asset aside sa cash. Take note lang na may tatlo tayong features sa asset. Dapat lahat ng feature na to is present para makonsider natin na asset yon. So, masasabi natin na asset ang isang bagay kapag ito ay na-obtain natin as a result from a past event. For example, binili natin siya last year. Also, if meron tayong control sa asset na yon, if tayo yung owner nun, tayo yung may karapatan mag-decide saan siya gagamitin, and if tayo yung gumagamit nun. And lastly, kapag yung asset na yun, yung nakaka-benefit sa atin in the future. So, yung asset, kinang-classify natin yan as current and non-current asset. So, paano nga ba tayo nagka-classify ng asset whether it is current or non-current? Masasabi natin na current ang asset kapag ito ay not restricted in use or hindi siya nakalaan for specific na event or project. Current din kapag, of course, pwede siya ma-convert into cash within a year. Current din kapag able to sell siya, mabenta, or magamit natin siya within a year. For our current asset, yung common ay ang mga cash equivalent, short-term investment, receivables, inventory or supplies, and then yung mga prepaid expenses. For non-current naman, ito syempre yung mga lahat ng di magpo-fall sa current asset. So, isa nandun is yung kapag pwede natin siya magamit for more than a year. Also, mga asset na hindi intended na ibenta but intended na gamitin siya para sa normal operation ng business. Dito sa non-current asset, meron tayong PPE which include land, building, equipment, and furniture. But meron din tayong mga intangible assets na nagpo-fall sa non-current, pero this one, let us further elaborate na lang din sa future topics natin. So, ang asset natin, meron tayong contra accounts dito. For our contra assets, ito yung mga accounts na ino-offset natin sa other related account niya para makuha natin yung current na value ng related account natin na ka-pair ng contra account, ng contra asset natin. Meron tayong dalawang common contra asset at yun yung allowance for doubtful accounts at accumulated expenses. So, itong dalawa na to is need natin i-offset sa receivables and PPE natin para makuha natin yung current na value na lang ng ating receivables at ng ating PPE. For allowance for doubtful accounts, dinadeduct natin siya sa accounts receivable para makuha natin kung ilan na lang yung remaining accounts receivable na ina-expect natin. So, ito yung nakikita natin usually sa balance sheet. For the accumulated depreciation naman, nakikita natin to sa balance sheet as well, pero this one is in-offset natin siya sa related PPE niya, such as for building, vehicle, furniture and fixtures, and equipment. Pero syempre, yung land, walang accumulated depreciation dito kasi sa land nga, tumataas pa ata yung value nun instead na nagde-depreciate. So, need natin i-offset ang mga accumulated depreciation sa paired account niya para makuha natin yung value ng ating paired asset over time.
Now that we are done discussing the assets, magpunta naman tayo sa other two parts of the accounting equation, which are the liabilities and equity. So first, ano nga ba kapag sinabing liabilities? For you to easily remember, liabilities is equal to claims or debts. In Filipino, ito yung utang ng business entities sa external parties or vice versa. For example, AcES company purchased a various equipment on account for 50,000 pesos. So in here, the assets of the business will increase in the form of equipment with a corresponding increase in liabilities for 50,000 pesos. Other definition of liabilities, para mas malinawan kayo, is it is a present obligations of an entity to transfer an economic resource as a result of past events. So there are two kinds of liabilities. First is current liabilities and non-current liabilities. So punta muna tayo sa kinds ng current liabilities. First, accounts payable, which we can say na opposite to ng accounts receivable. Dito naman, tayong entity yung may payable sa vendors or suppliers para doon sa products or services na na-receive na natin pero hindi pa nababayaran. Next is short-term notes payable. If the promissory note is payable within 1 year, then it is considered a short-term notes payable. And next is unearned revenue. So do not be confused sa name ng account even if revenue yung nakalagay because it does not equate na revenue siya. So unearned revenue when the entity already received the payment from customers in advance pero they haven't rendered the service nor provided the goods yet to the customers. So may utang yung business entity sa kanyang customers. In short, may advance payment yung customers. And other short-term liabilities that is payable within 1 year. So now, we are done with current liabilities, non-current liabilities naman tayo. So if we have short-term notes payable, of course, we also have long-term notes payable, which are payable for more than 1 year. And next is bonds payable. So it is a contract of debt wherein yung one party na tinatawag nating issuer is nangungutang ng funds from another party or tinatawag naman nating investor. So ginagamit to kadalasan ng corporations or government. And mas madidiscuss pa to sa mga susunod na topics. So deferred tax liabilities, ito naman yung income tax obligation na mababayaran in the future period. So, any liabilities that are payable for more than a year will fall on other long-term liabilities. So, para masabi natin kung current or non-current liabilities ba siya, merong sinabi sa PAS 1, paragraph 69. Summary nito is if yung liability is expected to be settled within 1 year after the reporting period. Also, if yung liabilities is related sa trade or normal operating cycle. So, it is also regarded as current liability. And for non-current liability, kabaliktaran lang ng definition ng current liability. At dahil tapos na tayo sa liabilities, punta naman tayo sa equity. So, what is equity nga ba? Ang kailangan nyo lang tandaan ay yung accounting equation. Equity is equal to assets less liabilities. So in short, ito yung residual interest ng owner sa enterprise. So for the equity or capital, it depends on what form of organization. In here, we have the sole proprietorship. We have the owner's equity and drawings. So owner's equity is the investments made by the owner. It can be a cash or non-cash assets. For drawings, withdrawal of the entity's assets for personal use by the owner. So, tig-isang account sa capital and drawings ng owner. Unlike sa partnership. Kasi in here, there are as many equity accounts based on the numbers of the partners. So, if may 5 partners within the partnership, then there are also 5 capital and drawing accounts. For corporation, since ang ownership sa corporation ay nahati sa share of stocks, yung value ng lahat ng share of stocks na yun ay tinatawag na share capital. Then kapag nabenta yung stocks in a higher price, the excess is the share premium. Then lahat ng kinikita ng corporation ay magre-reflect sa retained earnings. Represented dito lahat ng dividend distributions, cumulative balance of periodic earnings, and other capital adjustments. So, you will learn more about corporation in the future topics. So, subscribe na kayo para updated kayo sa videos namin. Now that we are done discussing the ALE or assets, liabilities, and equity, punta naman tayo dun sa RE or revenue and expenses account. Because of the operating activities, there are changes of course in the owner's equity. Since ang main or primary goal ng business is to earn profit, sa income statement or also called the profit or loss statement, pinapakita how much profit was produced by listing all the revenues against doon sa expenses na incur. In this slide, you will see a table showing the expanded structure ng accounting equation. And as you can see, the equity is affected by 4 accounts or elements. Ang equity natin increases if merong investments and it decreases if there is a withdrawal. Also, if there is a revenue, the equity increases since merong cash or other assets na pumapasok sa company, while equity decreases if there is an expense because expense is a decrease in economic benefit kaya nag-result sa pag-decrease ng equity. Since diba ang business, it cannot earn revenue without consuming assets or pag-use ng services. So that consumption to generate revenue is called an expense. So, sa revenue na tayo. Na-explain ko na siya in the previous slide. So, it can be classified into 2, which are operating revenue and non-operating revenue. So, ang kaibahan lang nito kapag sinabing operating revenue, it is from the main business operations. While non-operating revenue is generated siya outside the main business operations. So, examples ng revenue are sales revenue, service revenue, interest revenue, dividend income, rent income. So, marami pa yung examples. So, ito yung pinaka used na examples ng revenue. I provided a simple illustration for you guys to understand properly. So, ang sabi dito, Miss Minchin received 2,000 pesos from her customer, Sarah. So, si Miss Minchin daw naka-receive ng 2,000 pesos from Sarah na customer niya. Yung 2,000 pesos na yon, it is a cash. And cash is considered as an asset, in short, current asset. That's why merong increase in assets si Miss Minchin na 2,000 pesos kasi yun yung na-receive niya. And since nag-increase yung asset ni Miss Minchin, her owner's equity also increases for 2,000 pesos kasi ito yung kinita ni Miss Minchin from rendering a service. Last account for our 5 major accounts is expenses. So, these are the outflow of cash or other assets. So, ito yung gastos ng entity sa pag-ooperate. So, di ba, syempre, in business, walang kita kung walang gastos. So, partner sila ng revenue. Examples ay rent expense, salaries expense, utilities expense, depreciation expense, repairs and maintenance expense, gas and oil, transportation expense. So, dito, meron din akong illustration. So, Miss Minchin paid cash of 10,000 pesos for the salary of her employee. So, si Miss Minchin daw, nagbayad siya sa halagang 10,000 para sa salary ng employee niya. So, meron tayong salary expense. And mababawasan ng 10,000 pesos yung cash ni Miss Minchin, which resulted in decrease in her assets as well as decrease in her owner's equity. Just like sa table na pinakita ko kanina, kasi 'di ba expenses decreases the equity. So that's it. We already done discussing the 5 major accounts.
Proceeding to the accounting equation, we have the basic one with the assets equals liabilities plus equity. Ale, as I'd like to call it like a type of beer, is the main element of the double entry accounting system. Based on the equation, the value of assets should be equal to the sum of liabilities and equity. For me, this equation also means na pag may gumalaw na value sa assets, there should also be movement sa values ng liability or equity. This also applies kapag may movement sa liabilities or equity. There should also be movement sa assets para ang bottom line nila at the end of the day is balanced. So, as we expand our knowledge, let's also expand our basic accounting equation by adding capital, retained earnings, revenue, expenses, and drawings in the story. These accounts make up the owner's equity. When we say retained earnings, it is the difference between revenue and the sum of expenses and drawings. As a result, our basic ALE accounting equation shall become assets equals liabilities plus capital plus revenue minus expenses minus drawings. Let's dive in agad sa normal balance. Always keep in mind that ALE basic accounting equation. Ang assets natin will always have debit as its normal balance, while on the other side naman of the equation, the liabilities and equity will always have the credit balance. Nilagyan ko ng positive and negative sign to show yung opposite nature of the accounts. The capital and retained earnings generally make up the equity, but to come up with the retained earnings, kailangan munang bawasan yung revenue ng expenses of the business and drawings of the owners. Since revenue normally has a credit balance, yung ibabawas natin sa kanya na expenses and drawings should have a debit balance, which as you can see are the only two accounts na may positive sign sa credit side of our table. To sum it all up, always remember that assets have resource value, liabilities means financial obligation, equity refers to the owner's residual interest, revenue is yung kita or the cash inflow sa business, while expenses naman is yung opposite niya, which is cash outflow. For their normal balance, always keep in mind that assets will always have a debit balance and liabilities and equity will have a credit balance. Capital and retained earnings make up the equity, okay? How do we solve for retained earnings? By subtracting expenses and drawings with the normal debit balance from the revenue. To give you a better understanding, I'd like to introduce to you Miss Ing, who plans to start her own salon business. Here today, die tomorrow. On September 1, Miss Ing invested 300,000 pesos in her business. On the same day, Here Today, Die Tomorrow purchased equipment worth 100,000 pesos on the account.
Provided services such as hair and nail treatments to clients on credit for a total of 30,000 pesos. This transaction, there is a 30,000 increase in assets, which is the accounts receivable as well as an increase in equity for the services rendered by Miss E. Paid 10,000 pesos for the rental space. There is a 10,000 decrease on assets because of the cash payment for the rent made by Miss A with a corresponding decrease in equity due to the contra equity account, which is the rental expense.
On September 30, Ms. Ing received the electricity invoice for the month of September amounting 8,000 pesos. 8,000 pesos liabilities for the utilities payable and a decrease in equity due to the contra equity, which is the utilities expense of Here Today, Die Tomorrow. On the same day, Ms. Ing needs cash and decided to withdraw 10,000 pesos temporarily. decrease of 10,000 pesos on assets since Miss Ing used his cash for personal use, and decrease in equity due to withdrawal of cash, which falls under contra equity. At the end of the month, here is the summary of Miss Ing's transactions. To sum up, at the end of the month, Here Today, Die Tomorrow Salon has 410,000 pesos assets and 108,000 liabilities and 302,000 equity, a total of 410,000, which is the same amount as the assets. This is how the accounting equation works.
As we reach the end of this video, may pabaon ako for you na exercises. Nagbabalik si Miss Ing to help you have a deeper learning of the 5 major accounts as you practice on the transactions of her business. In this assessment, you would need to indicate the basic type, specific account, the effect of the transaction, and the normal balance of the account. Same instructions will also be applied to Mr. Yu's problem. I wish you good luck in answering these problems, and I do hope you'd understand more the concept by applying it to my pabaons.
Stay tuned because we will release more exciting topics that are beneficial to you, future accountants. Now that we are done discussing the major accounts, in the next video we will discuss the accounting cycle, which is all about the multi-step process that converts all of the entities' raw financial information into financial statements. In the next video, we will go deep into that topic together with your next batch of tutors. So, see you in our next one.